Hello, this is Joanna Toch, Family Law Cafe podcast. Today I'm delighted to present Konrad Rotthege, who has an amazing business. It's called Conveyo. It's conveyancing online. I think it's very like what we do at Family Law Cafe, but we're going to find out. So Konrad, welcome to the podcast. How would you describe yourself and what you do?
Well, to give a bit of background about myself, I'm from Germany and I'm a lawyer by background. I started my career about 10 years ago at Freshfields in the M&A and property space. And I recently, 2 years ago, started Conveyo after having had a terrible conveyancing experience myself. I was about to purchase a property and the purchase fell through. And I felt that the process was run in a very sort of intransparent, opaque, slightly confusing way. And that caused me to look further into the extra details of that process. And and then I thought to myself, there must be a better way to transact properties than we currently do. And that was the beginning of Conveyo.
Okay. Is it just you or are you working with anyone else?
So I have a fantastic business partner, Andrea. Mm-hmm. He's Italian, mm-hmm. a data scientist, mm-hmm. and he worked at UBS for many years as a data scientist and algorithmic trader.
Right.
And Andrea is the mastermind behind our tech that we leverage to streamline the process and make it more efficient, more transparent, really. Yeah.
Okay. So when you were working in M&A, mergers and acquisitions, as I understand, not an area I know very much about, but we do have... So I sometimes speak to people who move from that into divorce coaching and say it's very similar, but obviously, but not companies, people. So did you not want to stay there? I mean, that must have been a very comfortable, may I say, well-paid life and a good lifestyle. What drove you into building something for yourself?
Working in M&A has been incredibly rewarding. I always enjoyed it. Very interesting transactions. I met very interesting people and I had a fantastic team. I started my career at Freshfields and worked on many of the sort of current M&A transactions at the time. So, but I also always wanted to start my own thing at some point. And for a while I thought it would be maybe a law firm. I'm very interested in technology and thought it'd be interesting to actually combine those two and start a company that takes an antiquated, outdated legal process and then leverages technology to actually improve that process.
Because conveyancing, in my knowledge, there have been various initiatives to make it, bring it perhaps a little bit more into this century. And I know that a lot of conveyancing firms have, an online portal they might use. What makes Conveyo different?
So, during my time as a lawyer, I learned what it means to deliver excellent client service in the legal services industry. And that mindset and that spirit we're bringing to the conveyancing process today. And the process as it stands is a very sort of internally processed, focused process. It doesn't really cater for the client. It's not consumer focused, it's not consumer centric. And I think that's the main difference between the standard traditional process and what we do. Yeah. How we achieve it is obviously a lot of it is technology, a lot of it is process management, but what the clients really care about is not so much how you get there, but it's the outcome, because they don't sign up for a process. they sign up for an outcome. They want to move on with their life. They want to move to the next property, start a new chapter, and that's what we help them with.
Because I know from my own experience and those that I'm close to, that the buying and selling of the property, it does seems to me that the conveyancing solicitors are quite a different breed of people, that you can never really understand what's happening and why things are taking so long. And it's almost as they just don't want to be disturbed. I'm also aware, I think it was at a time when, I think it was a few years ago, there's some changes were made. It was around COVID. Something was going on. I can't quite remember the details. Where conveyancing solicitors were saying we're being inundated with questions about the process, were overworked. So they don't seem to be entirely happy with their system. And I just don't think generally that the customer, the person that's buying or selling property, I don't think that we're very happy. Certainly my experience is you just don't know what's going on, and then suddenly there's a rush towards the end and you have to run around. It doesn't feel like, as someone who is making the purchase or the sale of the property, doesn't feel like you have much control. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. I can quite understand how, from a consumer perspective, and that was also my own experience I mentioned briefly in the beginning, it seems like an intransparent and opaque process, and you don't feel that you are in charge, even though it may be the most, financially most important decision of your life, the biggest purchase you will ever make, buying a property. So there's, in a weird sense, there's a mismatch there, and that is certainly something that. From my perspective, also comes with a lack of client service, of excellent client service, which I do believe is paramount, because client service ultimately creates loyalty, it creates trust, and will help you to succeed in your business. And there are obviously different strategies how you can get there and how to achieve that. And I think communication is a key point, and in the current process we see a lack of communication, which then again triggers the feeling of not being in charge, of not knowing what's going on. So that is certainly something, and sadly we often see a lack of professionalism as well. Though the conveyancing space is a regulated space, sometimes you wish individual players be more acting in a more professional way than they do, which again is part of delivering excellent client services.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And in family law, it seems to me that people need to be told what's going on. They need to understand, they may be in a court process. They may have to wait 4 months for a hearing, and in that waiting time, they're a little bit puzzled about what's going on, how to comply with things. So I try to make Family Law Cafe as open and transparent as possible. How does that work with Conveyo? So let's say it's someone that is at Family Law Cafe and there's an order for sale of a house, so they come to Conveyo. How would that work?
So what we do is we prepare a property for the sale very early on, as in when it hits the market, when it becomes a listing at an estate agency. So in the current process, in the traditional process, people wouldn't prepare their houses for sale. They would just wait until an offer has been agreed.
Okay.
And then the sellers would start gathering all the legal paperwork that is required for the sale. And this can actually be done on the sell side already, as in while you're waiting for a buyer.
Can I just stop you there then?
Yes.
So in that example I've given, there's an order for sale of a property, and obviously the estate agent needs to come round and take photos and all of that thing before it even goes on the market, and then we wait for an offer. But what you're saying is once they know it's going to be sold, so there is that decision, they can start preparing it. So how would that happen? What
Exactly.
do you need to do?
Yes, exactly. It's exactly as soon as the decision is made, we recommend to reach out to us and kick off the preparation process.
Okay.
And that consists of different elements. So one is the preparation of the property itself, which means we source all the legal paperwork that is required for the property, but also the property searches that reveal the factual and legal history of a property. So they're very important from a purchaser's perspective.
Yeah.
We would also run some compliance checks, KYC, know your customer checks that are required, and would help the sellers to gather all the information that is required.
So is it this? Because when I looked at setting up Family Law Cafe, I thought, how can we do this better? And just look to start from the beginning, and you know the current system it is not fit for purpose. So have you looked at conveyancing and thought, yeah, how can we do this better? Let's prepare everything, get it ready. Because from what I know of conveyancing, you get the sale, it makes the offer, it's accepted, and then they start looking. So those local, it's searches, isn't it? With the is it local government searches?
Exactly. The local land charges.
Yeah.
And there are different kinds of searches required for the transaction. And yes, so what we've done is we've basically deconstructed the entire process. And the process today is run in a chronological order, piece by piece, step by step. And we've looked at it and said, wouldn't it make more sense if we did this a bit earlier? And if we did those things in parallel? And can we already start preparing this while this is happening? And this is ultimately what we do and why we are so much faster. So the average transaction time at the moment is around 30 weeks. So it takes about 30 weeks to buy a property. And that's crazy. 30 weeks. And it's also incredibly risky because 1 in 3 transaction falls through.
30 weeks. Sorry, I'm computing that.
Yes.
So it's like 2/3 of a year. Sorry, that's just falling for me because it's a while since I've bought or sold a house. That's just soul destroying, isn't it? Because once you want to move, you want to move.
Yeah, and what is really soul destroying there?
And that's the average. So there will be longer ones.
There will be longer, but also shorter ones.
Yeah.
But yes, and that's the average according to the Home Buying and Selling Group. They a body who monitors these kind of time frames. So, and with Conveyo, because just the second point was it's not just that they're so long, but it's also that they're very risky because of the length of the process. A lot of these transactions don't make it over the finish line. So after a sale has been agreed, they basically just break at some point. They fall over.
And what makes them break?
Well, often, funny enough, transactions often break in the first 2 weeks or so when a purchaser changes their mind. They looked at different properties and then they actually say, well, actually, we'd rather go with this one. So fair enough, not much time has been invested at that point. But then at a later stage, transactions often break because the parties suddenly feel frustrated with the process. They feel insecure. They don't know if their buyer's actually going to buy the house. And obviously, as a seller, you also have plans. You want to move on to your next house and maybe put your kids in school there, but you don't know if you actually be able to sell that house to those people. And you've already been in a process, entertaining a process for months. And very often, these process inefficiencies then can lead to a fall through.
Yeah, that's really important to me. So what you're saying is I thought you meant that there was something in the searches not coming in or something legal. But what you're saying is because it takes so long, of course, the very length of time is going to affect people, isn't it, dramatically?
Yes.
And so, again, I align this with Family Law Cafe that we try to say, where are you now? Where do you want to get to? And sort of reverse engineer that. And then that can save a lot of time, because sometimes we can say, you probably won't get that when you go to court, so you might want to concede that now, and you get an outcome that's much, much quicker. I've had people say, you've done more in 2 days than has been done for me by my present solicitor in 6 months. I was like, yeah, because we're just going to get on with it. That's all I want to do for people, because that length of time, we're just not used to that in modern life, are we? I mean, that's a crazy element.
Yes.
Things should be quicker.
Yes, and I think our expectations in everyday life, they have dramatically changed.
Yeah.
I mean, if we took our phones out, we could have a pizza here in 30 minutes, or book an Airbnb somewhere at the other end of the world, in a matter of minutes. And while certain walks of life have gone with technology and enabled us to experience this push a button, magic happens. Other walks of life and other industries have been completely left behind with that. And that is definitely something that we're changing. And I mean, I must say, I find what you do with Family Law Cafe fantastic. And I see a lot of parallels there. Because, both our customers, they don't sign up for a process, they sign up for an outcome. They come for help. They want to buy a property, sell a property, or they want to get through a divorce, they want custody of their child. They don't want to entertain a lengthy process. And I think the reason that a divorce and actually buying and selling a property are ranked amongst the 5 most stressful experiences, together with a serious illness in somebody's life. I think part of the reason is that the processes are run the way they are currently run, and I think it takes brave entrepreneurs and visionary people to change these processes for the better.
I'm honest. I want everyone that uses Family Law Cafe to use Conveyo, because it's the nearest thing they're going to find to what they've been experiencing with us. Because once people come on board and they understand what we do, they totally get it and why it's different. And from what I know about Conveyo, and we're going to go into it a bit more, it's the same idea. It's saying, let's do this in a way it should be done in 2024, not as if it's 1974 or whatever.
Exactly.
It's craziness, isn't it? That things crazy. Are so slow.
It is crazy, and the inefficiencies are just mind-baffling, really. I could give tons of examples about those, but obviously they're very specific. But there's an upside to be discovered.
And so, someone that's using Conveyo, you've told us about how you get everything ready. So once they make the decision they want to sell the house, how quickly can you get things together? Because probably a bit like Family Law Cafe, unfortunately, we still have to deal with the court. So unfortunately, sometimes we get it in quickly and we try and do whatever we can. Sometimes we get frustrated by the fact that the court doesn't list the hearing for 6 months and we can't get past that. So firstly, with Conveyo, how quickly can you work? And secondly, do you get those instances where you are prevented from working quickly by other parties?
Yes, so a seller can prepare their property for sale with Conveyo in a matter of hours, really.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yes, so our portal completely guides them through the entire process, and it will explain what documents need to be obtained and where to find them. And it's all written in very easy language. So there's no sort of legal jargon in there that confuses people. And
sorry to stop you there. So they have their own online portal, a bit like they have their online case space at Family Law Cafe, where they are guided through very simply.
Exactly. They're guided through it in their own time. They just do it at their own pace. And they can call us anytime. We always have people available to help when someone gets
again, that's a parallel, because I don't want people just to be baffled, and it shouldn't be like your checkout at the supermarket where you have to do it all yourself. You still should have people to help you.
Exactly. And I think that's very important, because We are, we're powered by technology, but ultimately we care about the transaction of another person, and so it's a very personal service, and we also often have elderly buyers and sellers who sometimes are not so familiar with the in and outs of technology, and we guide them through that step by step over the phone or in a meeting. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, we do too, and it just works the same way. And I designed it so it would be very simple. And so as long as you can give confidence, those people and have someone there. So you've said they have their own online portal, they get their documents, could be done in a matter of hours. And how does it work from there?
The second part of your question, whether we get restricted by third parties in terms of speed and preparation. So we obtain the searches, and they're coming from the local authorities. And they have different time frames to process these searches. Sometimes they are very fast, and sometimes it can take a couple of weeks for those searches to be processed. So that's something that we don't control. But given that you start the process on day one of the listing, or even before it comes to the market, the property, there's plenty of time to wait for the searches, because it's very unlikely that you find a buyer who's ready to buy within 2 weeks from that moment in time.
Because lots of people arrange things thinking we will get a quick sale, and they say there's no chain, we'll go into rented, and they still seems to take them ages. And I'm beginning to understand why now, because they've not done anything to prepare that sale, and they've waited until the offer is made. And then there might have been, as you say, first couple of weeks, sometimes people drop out and change. But if they're all ready to go, then what will happen after the offer? So let's say they've decided to sell, they've got everything ready, they come to you, an offer's made 6 weeks after it goes on the market. So where does it go from there?
So once a sale is agreed, we onboard the buyer, which means we prepare them for the transaction. On the buy side, there are certain things to consider. For example, if someone is buying with a gift, or in these cases, the giftor needs to be identified as well. They need to pass certain anti-money laundering checks and so on, just to ensure we are compliant with regulation. And so we would do all that, and during that time the buyer would typically also sort out their financing, so they might have a mortgage which they would then take care of during that time. And once that process is completed, there may be some questions going back and forth about more details of the properties, but that's usually something we can sort very quickly, and then the property is ready to exchange.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I suppose it depends. Obviously, if someone needs to get a mortgage, that can delay it, and there's nothing you can do because it's they're getting their mortgage. Sometimes people, because another thing that is said is, estate agents will say they have a mortgage in place and they have a substantial deposit, and so then that offer is accepted, and then that doesn't happen. But I guess if that were really true, then how quickly could it all happen if, let's say, they have their mortgage in place?
So we have repeatedly exchanged properties in 28 days or less.
Perfect.
So that's...
I'm coming to you. If I'm selling, I'm coming to you.
I'm saying days, not weeks.
Yeah. Days, not weeks, not months. And so if you are purchasing, can you start with Conveyo?
Yes, you can. Yes.
Mm-hmm. How does that work? Do you just say, I need to buy a property, can you do it? What's
Exactly. Very much like that.
Yeah.
We would start with the process I've just described, ask a few questions around the financing and around the buyer themselves. Once we receive the information from the seller, we will then start the process.
Perfect. So often if people are selling their property, the estate agent will say, we have certain solicitors we use. So are there estate agents that refer people to you, or how does that work? How do people find out about you?
Well, certainly estate agents often refer solicitors. Some estate agencies have referral contracts with big solicitor or conveyancing firms. These are not always the fastest providers on the market. But then again, there's also a number of estate agents that are free in their choice who to recommend for the process, and they tend to then recommend providers that are much speedier and much more on the case.
And just to be clear, so Conveyo is doing all of the organisation, but there's still a solicitor involved?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And so you work with that solicitor, so you're getting everything funneled in and really in the same way as Family Law Cafe works with solicitors and barristers. So you're a platform just as we are.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so similar. And I totally get why you're doing what you're doing. I mean, do you enjoy it? Do you enjoy
very much so, very much so. And it's so rewarding when clients write to us or leave us reviews and say it has been like the easiest experience I've ever had when buying or selling, or they feel, for them it's such an important transaction, and just to make them so happy and being able to help them is great.
Yeah, it does feel personal, and I have to say that there's some things are not always easy. There's problems, obviously things come up all the time, but it's really rewarding for me to be doing something different that people appreciate, and when they are appreciative, it's just such a lovely thing, isn't it? Yeah. And so where's it going next? What's the big game plan?
Well, we're still a young company, and we're constantly growing our fan base, if you want so. We've made very profound connections with a lot of players in the industry that we work with, and they just love the convenience and the speed of our service. For example, we have one corporate client who buys a large number of properties. And we facilitate that process for them, which they used to wait about 6 to 8 months for these transactions to go through, and now it's more a matter of 6 weeks.
Wow!
So and it makes them very happy, and it makes total sense from a economic perspective. If you think that you may be buying and selling property, flipping property as a business, and if you need to wait 6 months to buy a property and then renovate it, refurbish it for 3 months, and then wait another 6 months with your capital locked in to resell it, that's very pricey. And and therefore many individual but also corporate clients turn to us in their need for faster transactions.
Just something I just wanted to pick up, because those that maybe not familiar with the whole conveyancing process. Earlier we talked about how quickly you could get to exchange, but my understanding, and I'm not a conveyancing lawyer, you might correct me, but once you've done the exchange, the completion can happen very quickly, can't it? Or it could even the next day or?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
exchange and completion happen on the same day.
Yeah.
So basically at once, but also usually within a week we
Yeah.
would then complete the
Yeah.
purchase. And yeah, just to explain, exchange means that the sale becomes legally binding,
Yeah.
and then completion means that you actually get the keys
Yeah.
of your property.
Yeah.
And that is actually very interesting. We aim to get to exchange to the moment the sale becomes legally binding very fast. But then completion can be determined by the parties.
Yeah.
And the stress of a property transaction usually results out of the circumstance that you don't know if it happens. And if so, when it will happen.
Yeah.
But if you get to exchange quickly,
Yeah.
then you can determine the time frame for completion, and you can say, look, we exchange tomorrow, but I still want to live in this property for another 3 months.
Yeah.
Because then I'm moving
Yeah.
abroad or whatever. And that's absolutely in the discretion of the parties once you've reached that point in time.
I'm just thinking the parallel with getting divorced, which is actually to getting to the conditional order and all of the scrambling and hard work. And you cannot get a financial order until then. But if you are all ready and you get your conditional order, you can put in your financial order the next day. And that means that a conditional order would mean all the legalities are done, and then the decree absolute ends the marriage. So it's a similar situation, isn't it? That there's a lot to be done to make sure that the conditional order is correct and make sure the finances are in order. And the best thing that can happen, and what we offer people at Family Law Cafe, let's get this moving really quickly, because again, people dealing with their finances, they might be 2-3 years, and that's crazy. It really is, because it just shows. I always say to them, what's stopping this? When they come to us, what's stopping it moving forward? And they usually know what it is. It will be something they will pick out, and then we push on. So I think with buying and selling houses, as you've said, the stress is one of the most stressful things, but you can reduce that stress by making it so much simpler. And obviously getting divorced is horribly stressful, but I want to make it easier for people. It sounds like I'm not promoting everyone I'm saying if you've made that decision, like you're not promoting everyone selling their house, but if that's something you want to do, that life-changing matter, which often it is, let's get on with it. Isn't that better? Yeah,
I agree. As I bring it back to my point earlier, people, clients, customers, they're looking for outcomes. They want to achieve something and then move on in their life, right? And that's what we both help them to achieve.
There's so many parallels with Family Law Cafe and Conveyo. Can't wait to put my flat on the market. No, I'm joking. I mean, my partner recently sold a property which should have been so simple. He was just selling it as a landlord. And it was similar to when he purchased a few years ago. He just simply could not understand this very, very slow system. And I think you're right. It's opaque, isn't it? And it's there's no real reason for it. These things, I think, have just grown up historically and people don't want to change. I mean, do you see an aversion to change in your industry?
Well, the property industry is not the first one to change.
Yeah.
I think that has been established over some time now. That being said, there are very innovative players in the market that find new business ideas and that take antiquated processes and transform them into the digital stage, really.
Yeah. Is there any scope for using AI? Or I know that it's probably your partner that deals more with that area, but are you using innovative ways to get things moving forward?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's very much at the core of our technology. So a lot of what we do is gathering data, which means gathering information about the property, and be it through the searches, be it through the land registry documents, or be it through the energy performance certificate that contains a lot of information about a property. And all these data points, they can be drawn in and then reviewed through the system. So that's incredibly important. And the system can also do cross-checks to ensure accuracy and actually safety for the conveyancing process. So, for example, if you were selling a property, the system would cross-check your ID, the name on your ID and the name on the title, and if they don't match, that would be an instant alert. So we would be wondering, why is Joanna selling a property that has someone else's name in the title? And there could be reasons for it.
Yeah.
You may be acting with a power of attorney or as an executor or so.
Yeah.
But that is something that would be picked up immediately, just to give a very, very straightforward example.
I mean, it's really using these possibilities to make people's lives better, isn't it? But keeping the personal side of things.
Yes, and honestly, what it allows us to do is to free up the time of the solicitor.
Yeah.
Right? If the system is more accurate, it does that immediately.
Yeah.
And it allows our solicitors to actually focus on the client and on the case and actually provide value through their legal input, and not by doing sort of menial works that are better done by technology.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is where I can see that we will want to use more technology for form filling, for routine things, so to get the basic information, but rather than people having to fill in forms, even if they're filling forms online, it's not really helping them if they've got to type in their name, their address, their date of birth. This can be automated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So just to pick up that example, what we do is we ask you to identify yourself, but then the data from your passport is used for the rest of your journey. So you don't have to type your name once.
Yeah.
Right? We know it from your passport. So why would we?
Oh, so you've gone ahead of
to,
me there. That's so good. I love that. I might try and copy that. That's a great idea. But yeah, you've just got to keep thinking, haven't you? I mean, with all these innovations, it's amazing how much there is for people. And yet, as you've said, 30 weeks, that's craziness.
It is.
And presumably longer than it used to be. I don't think it was as long as that when I was younger.
Very, very interestingly
Yeah.
so. Conveyancing times have never been longer.
Crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Despite so many things moving digital,
Yeah.
conveyancing times have never been longer than they are today.
Yeah.
And we saw during COVID actually a positive development in the sense that a lot of parts of the conveyancing process have actually become more digital than they used to be. So before COVID, it was very standard to walk into a solicitor's office with your passport to identify yourself, and this has now been moved online through digital ID verification.
Yeah.
But strangely enough, what we've also seen was we've seen a surge in property sales and purchases transactions generally, and an increase in transaction time. But then after the period of cheap money, of low interest rates, we've seen the property market cooling off and transaction numbers going down. But conveyancing times didn't really. They remained largely unaffected, which has raised the question in the industry: why is that?
Why is that?
Why is that? And and certainly they are too long.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I hope that anyone listening to this checks out what you do. Honestly, I think they'd be crazy not to. I can't think of any reason why, if you're buying or selling, you wouldn't use Conveyo. Just, I suppose, I can't see of any reason if you have a family law problem why you wouldn't use Family Law Cafe. But obviously everyone has choices. Really, I feel that people that come to us, it's more about a state of mind, that they want to progress with their lives, they want to move on, they want efficiency, they want things done for them rather than having to run about after other people. Do you have a view about that? You know, I think, as I say, it's not male, female, young, old. It's what's your state of mind? Do you want to move forward? What do you think about your Conveyo customers?
I think exactly. I think that's exactly true. And if I was to add one point, it's the point of control that you brought up earlier. I think the feeling of actually being in control of your sale, or your family law related matter, is really important to our customers.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.